listen. Good afternoon, Ignatian family. My name is Randall.
And my name is Thais. And we want to welcome you all home to this space. Whether this is your first or 21st teach-in, all are welcome, and we are so glad that you are here.
This year, we will be serving as your leaders of prayer at the teach-in, and we are so excited to begin our journey with you today. Anytime that you see us on stage, know that we will be entering into a reflective and prayerful moment.
As we begin our time together, we want to clearly state that all are welcome in this space, from every tradition and wherever you find yourself on your faith journey. We hope that you will participate in our shared prayer and reflection spaces in ways that feel comfortable to you. We also want to make you aware that there is a multi-faith prayer space available for your use throughout the gathering, as well as a sacred listening room. They are located in Pentagon A and B. See your programs for more information.
And so, Ignatian family, let us begin this weekend in a space of presence and gratitude. We invite you to stand. We grow quiet and breathe deeply as we begin our prayer.
Our prayer has 4 simple postures and intentions, and we'll invite you all to do these movements with us now. The first is to await. Allow. Accept. And attend.
We, the Ignatian family, press on in the holy journey toward justice, following in the footsteps of the UCA martyrs. For some of us, this journey is just beginning. For others, we have walked this path for many years. The routes that have brought us to this place are as diverse as our ever-growing community. Yet we find ourselves as fellow pilgrims, moving toward the same horizon of justice, hope, and God's call, a promise of flourishing for all.
We take a moment now to await, and I'll invite you all to await with your hands as well. We await God's presence in this moment, listening to how God is calling us to move as pilgrims toward justice. Experience and wisdom teach us that walking this road is not always easy. The weight of injustice, hatred, and despair tempts us to turn back. And yet, we press on, sustained by faith, by the witness of those who have traveled before us, and by the companions who walk beside us.
we allow God's presence to be with us as we begin this journey. We make space for the stories of those that walked before us. On with intention and active hope, sharing our gifts freely and embracing the support we meet along the way. We press on with courage, trust, and the commitment to journeying together, even when the road is uncertain.
Siblings in God's family, chosen to be our companions on this journey. We accept and uplift each other's gifts along this holy way. Press on, knowing that we do not walk this path for ourselves alone. Like runners in a great cosmic relay, we carry forward the work of those before us and prepare the way for those who will follow.
Finally, attend. We attend to God's invitation to openness. We attune our hearts to new ways of listening and accompanying. It is in this sacred community of fellow travelers that we find direction, strength, and the clarity to discern our unique contributions to this larger purpose. And as we look to the road ahead, we are compelled to ask, what is ours to do?
Let us put each of the motions together. Await. Allow. Accept. Attend. 2 more times. Await. Allow, accept, attend, await, allow, accept, attend.
It is so good to be here, Ignatian family. With open hands and responsive hearts, may we press on together for all of God's people.
And to all of this, we say, Amen.
Amen.
All right. Just so folks know, if you're in the back looking for some seats, we have some seats up here on the floor. Right over here, I would say we could fit a delegation of 10 to 15. And we could put some folks over here by the piano, probably another 10 to 12. And if you have an open seat and you can scoot in, help somebody out, okay? Good evening, Ignatian family. My name is Chris Kerr, and on behalf of the Ignatian Solidarity Network, I want to welcome you to the Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're here. We know it wasn't necessarily easy to get here this year. For nearly 3 decades, the Ignatian family, people of all ages, but especially young people, a lot of young people here tonight, has gathered to renew our commitment to being people of faith who know that that faith cannot be lived authentically without the work of justice. Tonight, we continue that legacy, coming from across the country and beyond, united by the gospel, to work for love, solidarity, and hope. The teach-in began 28 years ago in a tent on the banks of the Chattahoochee River. And I should note, those were muddy banks at times, because it would rain sometimes down there in Georgia. I was a college student then, inspired by the energy of the gathering that remembered the 6 Jesuit priests and 2 lay women murdered in El Salvador in 1989 for defending human dignity and peace. And you could see their images up on the screen there, those 8 people. We met in Georgia at the site of a U.S. training school for Latin American soldiers to call attention to our nation's role in violence that claimed the lives of those 8 people and many others. In those early years, the teach-in focused on education and advocacy, addressing U.S. training and funding tied to human rights abuses throughout Latin America. Abuses that killed those 6 Jesuits and 2 women, Elba and Selena, as well as Saint Oscar Romero, Sisters Dorothy Kazel, Ida Ford, Mara Clark, and laywoman Jean Donovan, and tens of thousands of innocent civilians. From that small tent grew this movement, this Ignatian family, this sacred space where our faith invites us to do the work of justice. Tonight, under a very different kind of tent, not a muddy canvas structure, but this conference hall, our shelter provides a safe space where ideas, stories, hopes, dreams, prayers, and action plans can flourish. Nearly 2,000 of us, actually maybe more, gathered to learn, connect, pray, and prepare to act for justice. And we gather carrying the needs of the world with us. We know there's a lot of need in our world right now. We know there's profound conflict in our world in places like Sudan, Ukraine, Israel, and Palestine. We know communities worldwide continue to face the effects of a warming planet, from hurricanes and storms to devastating wildfires. And here in the U.S., we confront the vilification of immigrant communities, political violence, and polarization that test our nation's commitment to the common good. Despite these precarious times, there is something we should find hope in: the diversity and solidarity represented in this room. Together, representing universities, high schools, parishes, institutions sponsored by the Jesuits and other women's and men's religious communities, dioceses, and lay organizations, we form a community of pilgrims, discerning what is ours to do for the flourishing of all God's creation, both people and planet. We have delegations from more than 25 U.S. states, as well as Belize, Mexico, and El Salvador. We actually have 2 delegates who've come from the Universidad Centroamericana, the UCA, which we heard about in our opening prayer. This is where 6 Jesuits and 2 lay women were killed in 1989. And I want you to join me in welcoming Kevin and Lara from the UCA. They're 2 students there. Let's give them a round of applause. Where are they? They're somewhere. I also want to welcome the staff of Christians for Peace in El Salvador, CRISPAS, who has helped to bring those students here. The presence of this small but mighty Salvadoran delegation is a living bridge of solidarity. And as they gather in El Salvador tonight to remember the martyrs on this 36th anniversary weekend, we hold the UCA community and the people of El Salvador in our prayers. Amidst us, we also have partners that have helped to make this gathering possible. The Ignatian Solidarity Network is deeply grateful for the many institutions and organizations whose generosity sustains the teach-in. We're grateful for the support of the Beyond the Habit podcast, Ethics Merch, In My Shoes, the organization, not my shoes, In My Shoes, the Jesuit School of Theology at Santa Clara University, Loyola Marymount University's campus ministry, the McGrath Institute for Jesuit Catholic Education at University of San Francisco, the National Catholic Reporter, the Jesuit Conference of Canada and the United States, the Catholic Theological Union, they're loud, Jesuit Volunteer Corps and Jesuit Volunteer Corps Northwest, and the Boston College Klaus School of Theology and Ministry. We also want to extend our gratitude to the many individuals who supported the teach-in as compañeros. Many of them are here tonight, sitting over on this side of the room, so we're grateful to them. Thank you for helping to make this weekend possible. And as we enter into this time together, may we remember that this is a journey. It's not just what happens right now. All right, but this is a journey. It began in the places that you each traveled from. Some of you came from far away. You traveled on planes, trains, automobiles. And this journey continues here in this tent. It continues on Capitol Hill on Monday. And it continues when you return home to the work of justice in your own communities. This journey is not one of quick answers, but of faithful persistence. It is about pressing on together with open hearts and a willingness to listen, to learn, and to act. And now I'm delighted to introduce our 2025 Ignatian Family Teaching for Justice MCs, Amanda Montez and Woody Liu. Let's give it up for Amanda and Woody.
Hello, Ignatian family. What a joy it is to gather together this weekend with you. My name is Amanda Montez, and I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Jesuit High School in Portland, Oregon. I have been attending the teach-in since 2011 and have been deeply impacted by the legacy of the Jesuit martyrs of El Salvador. I would not be an educator nor a racial justice scholar in my doctoral work without the support, love, and encouragement of many, many Jesuit communities urging me to live a life committed to justice. Shout out to Xavier College Prep Palm Desert, Loyola Marymount University, and University of San Francisco. So if you're here for the first time, welcome, bienvenidos. And if you're a returner, welcome back and welcome home.
Hello, everyone. My name is Woody Liu, and I'm the assistant principal for community and belonging at Seattle Prep. And I'm so thank you. And I'm so excited to be with you all this weekend. I am a Los Angeles native, a proud graduate of Loyola High School and Loyola Marymount University. Yeah. And like Amanda, I wouldn't be who I am today without the people and places that formed me through my own Jesuit education. And like so many of you here, I'm here because I deeply believe in what this weekend represents, that faith and justice are inseparable and that our collective voice matters. I can already feel the energy and hope in the room, and I ask us to carry that spirit into every session, every conversation, and every action this weekend. So let's give yourselves a round of applause for being here.
Okay, y'all, let's get some important safety norms out there. Please wear your teach-in name tags throughout the weekend. This is very, very important. If we want to keep each other safe and only have conference participants mingling with us, you need to wear your name tag. Additionally, I know many of you are documenting these transformative memories and making all sorts of new friends. Please note the color lanyard that folks are wearing. People with blue lanyards are expressing that they do not want their photo taken. Please respect that desire.
If you prefer not to have your photo taken for safety reasons and currently have a black lanyard, swing by the registration desk to switch out your lanyard. Thanks for keeping each other safe. Any media representatives that are here, please do not approach the stage or block the aisles to capture images. Feel free to take photos and videos from your seat and respect the same safety and consent norms as all other participants. The official IFTJ photos and video will be available on Flickr and YouTube next week for you to download and share memories.
It is teach-in tradition to do a roll call so everyone can get a sense of who is present in this space. We're going to list off a bunch of schools, and then on the count of 3, I want the group of schools to yell presente. The Spanish phrase simply means present here and comes from the teach-in roots in Columbus, Georgia. We'll do a roll call now and then another one tomorrow morning. So if you don't hear your school called this time, don't worry, it's coming. I kindly ask you to wait until my countdown to yell presente and make lots of noise. Again, cheer at the end of the list, not when your institution is called. All right, here we go. Academia Maria Reina, Alpha Sigma Nu, Arupe Jesuit High School, Bellarmine College Prep California, Bellarmine Prep Washington, Beyond the Habit Podcast, Bishop O'Dowd High School California, Boston College Klaus School of Theology and Ministry, and Boston College High School. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Building Future Projects Incorporated, Canisius High School, Cardinal Gibbons High School, Carondelet High School, Catholic Climate Covenant, Catholic Mobilizing Network, Catholic Theological Union, Central Catholic High School, Oregon, Chaminade Julian Catholic High School, Ohio, and Chestnut Hill College. 1, 2, 3.
Chevres High School, Christ the King Jesuit College Prep, CLC Ignatian Small Groups, College of the Holy Cross, Covenant of the Sacred Heart, Creighton Preparatory School, Creighton University, Cristo Rey Atlanta Jesuit High School, Cristo Rey Brooklyn High School, Cristo Rey Jesuit High School. 1, 2, 3.
Cristo Rey Jesuit High School, Maryland, Cristo Rey Jesuit High School, Wisconsin, Cristo Rey New York High School, Cristo Rey Philadelphia High School, Cristo Rey St. Martin College Prep, Cristo Rey San Jose Jesuit High School, Detroit Cristo Rey High School, Dolores Mission, Dominican Academy, and Fairfield College Preparatory School. 1, 2, 3.
Good work. Fairfield University, Fordham Prep School, Fordham University, Georgetown Preparatory School, Georgetown University, Gonzaga College High School, Gonzaga Preparatory High School, Gwen Mercy University, Holy Trinity Catholic Church, and Instituto Ibero en Ciudad de México. 1, 2, y 3. Presente.
Jesuit College Preparatory School, Texas, Jesuit High School, Portland, Jesuit High School, Sacramento, Jesuit Volunteer Corps, John Carroll University, Loyola Academy, Loyola Blakefield, Loyola High School of Los Angeles, Loyola Marymount University, and Loyola School, New York. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you. Great job, and we will continue those later on. Now, I'd like to invite up Mike Libunau Makalintao from Regis High School in New York. Mike will be breaking open our teach-in theme, Pressing On. Please welcome Mike.
Good evening. My name is Mike Libuna Makalintal, and I am the Director of Campus Ministry at Regis High School in New York City. Now, before I begin, I think it's important that we sort of just reset the room. So I'm going to ask everybody to take a deep breath in, out, look at somebody next to you, and just say, yeah. All right, friends, is it all right if we just have a quick moment to pray? It helps me get ready and just center ourselves. Let us pray. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can no longer accept, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Friends, I have thought over and over on how to begin this speech. I promised my students all week that I would get this finished, and I did. But if I'm honest, it is a tough moment. What does it mean to press on these days? Proximate to this palace of power, what does it mean to do the work of justice when we have witnessed injustice all around us? What does it mean for us to press on when we have been pressed behind us, pressed in front of us, against us? We have been compressed, suppressed, and perhaps depressed. What do? We don't need to look far. We look at how our government and our leaders took apart and dismantled protections for the most vulnerable in our society. How language dehumanizes our siblings has now become the norm. How people have been purposely denied SNAP payments. And how we have treated the abduction of parents, spouses, siblings, children, all under the guise of safety and security. What does it mean then for us to press on? How do we press on? I'm reminded of a gospel passage in Luke. Jesus sends out his disciples to some towns, and they come back to him, rejected because they were turned away. And they were hurting. They were upset. Why, Jesus, didn't they take us? Why wouldn't they listen? They knew what it meant to be rejected, to be discarded, gaslit. You don't belong here. You don't know what to say. You're too young. You're too inexperienced, too naive. And in those moments, I knew it took everything in them not to act on that pain, but I know they were so close. How often have we felt that? How often have we felt the weight of those voices, those questions, those assumptions? How often have we found ourselves speaking truth to power and have found ourselves stonewalled? And yet you are still here. Across state lines and coastlines, by land, air, and maybe sea, you have found yourselves here in this time and this place. And yet you continue. You have committed yourselves to learning, to growing, to finding new ways to organize, mobilize, and advocate. Why? Why do so? What gets you up? What gets you to reach out to the broken, to combat white supremacy, misogyny, transphobia, homophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia? What wakes you up and fills your veins with the belief that the world can be better, that the world should be better? What is it? It's hope. It is that itch that tells you that the world isn't as it is. It is that feeling that creeps up after being shut down or out, that notion that gets you up again. That is the stubbornness of hope. And hope is a stubborn thing. It pushes past doubt and despair. It barrels its way through our confusion and suffering. It lights itself in us when all feels lost, when we are dealing with the rubble of once was, when we must dig ourselves in and try again. Hope is stubborn. Hope walks out onto city streets to stop ICE agents from abducting their neighbors. It stands outside city halls and detention facilities when detainees are denied pastoral care. Hope builds bridges, washes dishes, cooks meals, fills food banks, and stays online until every last person is seen, known, and fed. It sends text messages, phone calls, and long hugs after loss. Hope marches and sings songs of praise when people can't sing anymore. And it weeps with us when tears have ran out. Hope doesn't burn out. It doesn't give up. Hope doesn't know how to give up. Hope is stubborn. And make no mistake, Ignatian family, we are stubborn people. To press on, to stumble forward, to yearn and relentlessly pursue that beloved community, you gotta be stubborn and you gotta be full of hope. Tell me, children of God, are your hearts not full of hope? Are your hearts not full of hope? So imagine with me then a world where people don't go hungry, where every person has a home, a community, where their names aren't sullied, where their dignity isn't denied or rejected because of who they are or who they love, where there is no such thing as illegal, alien, or abnormal, but a world that rests on the truth that each of us are fearfully and wonderfully made in God's image. And there is no thing, no one, nor policy, nor power that could ever take that away. That world, bringing that beloved community forth, it's going to be tough because we know that injustice is just as stubborn, if not more. And we know that those same forces will do everything they can to push back. So we will need holy prophetic witnesses. We will need artists and writers and scientists, debaters, ministers, clergy and lay folks, teachers, counselors. We will need organizers, liturgists, dishwashers, caretakers, practitioners, whatever you are, whatever you do, we will need all of you. Because there is no one way to be a holy witness. The only requirement is that you are stubborn enough, hopeful enough to press on for a better world. So be stubborn. Be authentically stubborn. Be unapologetically stubborn. Be so insufferably stubborn that you make your way to the mountains of injustice and oppression. You speak to them until they have no choice but to listen. You plant yourselves on the ground, and then you move them. You move them with your convictions, your beliefs, your gifts, your talents, and your stubborn hope. You press on and you move mountains. You move mountains for the people who came before you. You move them with the people next to you. And you move them for those who will come after you. For what does the Lord require of us? But to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. I'll see you on the mountain.
Thank you so much, Mike, for breaking open the theme and helping us orient ourselves to the full days ahead. Before each of our keynote speakers this weekend, we'll have a few Ignatian Network speakers who will warm us up with their own justice perspectives. Our first Ignatian Network speaker is London Walker from Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland, California. Let's hear it for London.
Good evening. Oh, you can do better than that. Good evening. As you heard, my name is London Walker. I'm a senior at Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland, California. And this is Code, Courage, and the work that's ours to do. If I close my eyes and I think back, I see a classroom that smelled like dry erase markers and hot Chromebooks. The Berkeley Coding Summer Program's banner was taped a little crooked over the whiteboard, and a bucket of Tangled chargers sat in the corner. I remember walking, finding a chair near the back, opening my editor, and waiting for the first line of code to distract me from the uncomfortable stares. I also remember scanning the room and realizing that I was the only Black girl there. Now, it wasn't anything that anyone said out loud. It was in the posters that didn't quite look like me, the examples that didn't sound like my life, and the jokes that landed everywhere but here. But I couldn't help but love what we were building. Logic that made sense, patterns that felt like music to me, but little by little, it felt like I was learning a language that didn't expect me to speak back. So instead of forcing myself into the room, I began to drift. I found other spaces. I learned to love debate and policy and the shape of a good argument. But even as I moved into my love for the law, something in me stayed with code. The way that technology sneaks into everything that we care about, our safety, our stories, our futures. I didn't know the word for it yet, but I do now: cybersecurity. Now, you might be sitting wondering why this topic could possibly be so important, but I'm here to tell you that cybersecurity isn't just about not clicking that sketchy link. But it turned out that the same questions I asked about fairness in the courtroom mattered online too. Who gets protected? Who gets targeted? Who gets a second chance? And who never gets one? Cybersecurity became the connection between what I loved in technology and what I loved in law. And so I started to notice the headlines that I had scrolled past. Hospitals being frozen by ransomware, girls being doxxed for speaking up, deepfakes being made to silence activists, data being scraped and sold without consent. It wasn't theoretical anymore. It was teenagers, it was me, it was us. But it wasn't just danger, it was access. There weren't enough seats for Black girls at the tables where the rules got written. Not enough mentors who looked like us. Not enough classrooms where we were expected to be the ones who fixed it, not just the ones being kept safe by it. So I did what I could from where I was. I pressed record and I taught what I knew. I kept studying and I asked better questions. And eventually, I took on a risk that felt bigger than myself. I published a children's book about cybersecurity with a team of people that believe kids deserve the power to learn early. Now, the book was simple on purpose, so that an 8-year-old and their parent could read the book and name the world before the world named them. But it was more than that, because the children in the book had faces of Black children. Because that 8-year-old who's sitting with their parent shouldn't question whether they can enter into the field of cybersecurity just because the book that they're reading doesn't show anyone who looks like them. We showed them Black schools, Black programs, Black educators, and Black legends, all who thrived in the world of safety online. government officials who protect us against terrorism, billion-dollar cyber analysts, and 1,000 more positions that these children now have access to. So then, in 2024, the Biden-Harris administration reached out. I was invited to speak about cybersecurity and African Americans and why representation matters in who builds the tools and who's protected by them. Now, I'll admit, I walked past security absolutely terrified, holding on to my notes, and I sat down across from the National Cyber Director of the United States. The seal on the wall felt as heavy as the weight was on my shoulder, but we talked about threats and training and why safety can't just mean filters, why it has to include literacy and mentorship and budgets and belief, why it has to include us. Now, this is where the Ignatian theme meets our story, pressing on. We press on past the thin version of diversity that counts faces without changing systems. We press on when the room feels too cold and the chair feels too big. We press on when the stories told about us don't match the ones that we're living. So what is ours to do? If you're a student, take one step closer. Learn the terms, ask the questions, pair your passion, whether arts or sports or ministry or journalism, with tech literacy. The future isn't tech or justice, it's both or it's neither. If you're an educator or a parent, make room. Bring in speakers who look like the children that sit in your seats. Fund the club. Protect the hour after school where curiosity turns into skill. Don't just warn, but teach. If you're in policy or IT at your school or your parish, build your guardrails with your students, not just for them. Center the kids who are the most at risk in the choices that you make about platforms, data, and training. Safety without dignity isn't safety. And for all of us in this Ignatian family, remember that pressing on is a communal verb. We are pilgrims, not solo travelers. We move because others have moved with us. So when I think back to that first classroom, the crooked banner, the tangle of the chargers, I don't just remember the doubt. I remember the feeling when the code finally ran, when the error turned into output, and when the problem on the screen taught me something true about the world. You can't debug what you won't name. You can't secure what you won't learn. And you can't change what you won't face. So we face it. We learn it. We change it. And I'm a member of this Ignatian family, pressing on not just for myself alone, but for all the kids who will come after, the ones who will read their first ABC and learn about a world of safety and security and ask better questions than I ever could, the ones who will write the code that keep our communities safe. We press on with intention and active hope. We press on with courage and companions. And we press on until every classroom expects us and every system protects us. Your knowledge, our knowledge, isn't just power. It's protection. It's possibility. And it's the light that we carry together. Let's press on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, London. Thank you so much, London. Before our keynote speaker of the evening, I'd like to formally introduce Francisco Herrera. Francisco has been inspiring and uniting teach-in participants since the protests at the School of the Americas. We're so grateful to have him here again. And tonight he has a theme song for us. Give it up for Francisco.
All right, folks. Well, pressing on means knowing the struggles we've been through, in using those to energize ourselves to move on forward. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser un cosmo entero. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser es un lucero. Brilla que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. You learned it? Let's try it together. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser un cosmo entero. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser es un lucero. Que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. And with my good brother Luaya from the Peace Poets, who sends his great love, my wife Cristina, Una Valle, together we live in a community called Cantico Farm in Oakland. We put these verses together, and there you could sing with those. Mis compañeros, como les admiro, y todos juntos, qué bello tejido. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser un cosmo entero. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser es un lucero. Que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Fuerte, que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Y aunque vengan los tiempos de frío, el pueblo unido será tu abrigo. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser un cosmo entero. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser es un lucero. Que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Next slide for everybody to see. Y ese abrigo es montañas y ríos, y cada persona que canta contigo. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser un cosmo entero. Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser es un lucero. Brilla que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Brilla que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Que brilla y nos guía en el camino de amor y alegría. Press on, shine on. Press on and shine on. We are all siblings in this motherland. Thank you very much. Gracias.
Gracias, Francisco. And now we are thrilled to introduce our Father Charlie Curry Memorial Keynote speaker. But first, who was Father Charlie Curry? Following the horrific murders of 6 of his fellow Jesuits, their housekeeper and her daughter, on November 16, 1989, Father Curry served as a liaison to the U.S. congressional investigation into the murders over the subsequent years. He took great risks to uncover the truth of Salvadoran and U.S. government complicity in the deaths of the UCA martyrs. Honoring Father Curry's legacy, who helped begin the gatherings that eventually became the Teach-In, we welcome our first keynote speaker, Father Greg Boyle.
Father Gregory Boyle is a Jesuit priest and founder of Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles, the largest gang intervention, rehabilitation, and re-entry program in the world. Born and raised in Los Angeles, Father Boyle served as a pastor of Dolores Mission Church in Boyle Heights from 1986 to 1992, where he witnessed the devastating impact of gang violence on his community. He and his parish and community members adopted what was a radical approach at the time: treat gang members as human beings. In 1988, they started what would eventually become Homeboy Industries, which employs and trains former gang members in a range of social enterprises, as well as provides critical services to thousands of individuals who walk through its doors every year seeking a better life. Father Boyle is the author of the 2010 New York Times bestseller, Tattoos on the Heart, The Power of Boundless Compassion, along with numerous other books. He has received many awards for his ministry, including, but not limited to, the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2024. Let's give a warm welcome to Father Boyle.
Thank you. Thank you. When I got that presidential medal, a homie texted me and said, "I heard you got some presidential pardon or some shit." Yeah, something like that. I am humbled to be here with you, especially I knew Charlie Curry, and who began this venture, and along with Bob Holstein, both of them are looking down on us, and Loretta Holstein is live streaming, watching. And so I thank them for their vision. I look out at all of you, and I think about what Martin Luther King used to say about church, that it's not the place you come to, it's the place you go from. Eventually you're going to go from here. And you are going to imagine a circle of compassion, and then you're going to imagine nobody standing outside of it. And you're going to go from here, and you are going to decide to dismantle the barriers that exclude. And you will imagine and nurture into being a community of kinship such that God, in fact, might recognize it, a place of tenderness, where everybody is welcomed. You will go from here knowing the marrow of the gospel, and you will choose to decide to take seriously what Jesus took seriously: 4 things: inclusion, nonviolence, unconditional loving kindness, and compassionate acceptance. You will go from here and you'll stand at the margins, because that's the only way they'll ever get erased, is if we stand out at them. And you will stand with the poor and the powerless and the voiceless, and you're going to go from here and stand with those whose dignity has been denied and those whose burdens are more than they can bear. And together we're going to be able to press on and go from here to stand with the easily despised and the readily left out, to stand with the demonized so that the demonizing will stop, and to stand with the disposable so that the day will come when we stop throwing people away. And we will go from here because there's something urgent happening, and we need to resist
with the power of our love, knowing that we are all siblings of infinite love. And we will go from here and be mindful of how we need to put one loving foot in front of the next. The poet Galway Kinnell says, now could be the moment when we fall apart or when we become whole. And that's part of what this Ignatian family has always been dedicated to since 1989, when our brothers and sisters were assassinated in El Salvador. We choose to become whole. And we brace ourselves because the world will accuse us of wasting our time at the margins. That always happens. But the prophet Jeremiah writes, for in this place of which you say it is a waste, there will be heard again the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voices of those who sing. And you'll go from here and people will be heard. And so we have to represent a spacious and expansive God as we go from here. We don't want our God to become puny. We don't want to settle for a partial God. For 40 years, I've walked with gang members, and it's been the privilege of my life, and indeed privileged to be joined on this trip by Brian and Anthony, who will speak to you in 2 workshops to come. But it is the privilege of my life to walk with them and to somehow want to learn from them and be reached by them and understand the kind of God who loves us without measure and without regret. For all those 40 years, I say Mass, in detention facilities, juvenile halls and jails and probation camps. And I was at a San Fernando Juvenile Hall, and I was saying Mass there and there were 200 gang members in the auditorium, and I was wearing my stole and my alb, and I was sitting on a little raised platform, and the homies got up to do the readings, and so they have these sheets that have the readings in English and in Spanish, and the first homie got up and read from the Hebrew Bible, and I closed my eyes. I wanted to just listen to the word being proclaimed, and I rested that sheet on my lap. And the second guy got up to do the responsorial psalm, and there was kind of an overabundance of confidence in his voice, and he gets up and he says, "The Lord is exhausted." And I said, "What the hell?" And it was, "The Lord is exalted." And I remember thinking at the time, wow, that's way better. Because the exhausted God connects to our invitation to go from this place and be generous, to choose to be in the world who God is, loving and kind and compassionate. And so we want to go from here and stay always anchored in the present moment, knowing that love is always the next thing to do. But we're too busy lamenting what happened yesterday, or we're anxious about tomorrow, and we lose the present moment that invites us to delight and to be curious and to lean in and to avoid judgment. I had a homie named Caesar come into my office at Homeboy Industries, and I'd known him since he was a little kid in the projects, and he was working in the bakery now, a Homeboy Bakery, which is just in our headquarters, just behind my office. And he had a hairnet on, and he had an apron, black apron that said Homeboy Bakery, and it was dusted with flour. And he stands in front of my desk, and he says, "I need your divided attention." And I said, "You are in luck, because that is exactly what you're going to be getting." And he says, "I love baking bread, and I bring it home. I bring loaves of bread home to my family, and my mom, she's proud of me, and my kids, they're not ashamed of me. And you know who I have to thank for this job." And I said, "Well, gosh. Who?" And he looks at me strange, and he says, "Well, God, of course." "Oh, yes, no, sure. That's right, that would be God. Wait a minute, you thought I was going to say you. I said, no, gosh. God's number one. He said, you are so lucky we're not living in them Genesis days. I'm sorry, them Genesis days? He goes, yeah, because God would have had struck down your ass already by now. And we both leaned in and we delighted and found ourselves anchored in the present moment. And you don't want to miss it when it happens. We won't be able to go from here and to put one loving foot in front of the next unless we choose to be anchored right here and now and delighting. Many years ago, I would ride my bike in the middle of the night in the housing projects where I was pastor, and I would patrol the 8 gangs at war with each other in the projects. And I can remember coming upon this one gang, and the older homies would come forward and we'd be talking. And this little guy came up right in between all the older guys. I found out his name was Danny. He was 13 years old. And he always made a point to lift up his shirt to show that he had a gun tucked into the front of his pants. And he made a solemn vow to me once. He said, I will never step foot in Homeboy Industries. So I only knew him from the streets, and I knew him from juvenile hall and probation camp. And finally, at 18, he went to prison for 2 years. And in gang recovery, they say it takes what it takes: the birth of a son, the death of a friend, a long stretch in prison. For Danny, he got out of prison to discover that his mother had 6 months to live. She had pancreatic cancer. I'd go to his house and I watched how tender this guy was with her. All the more remarkable because she was quite torturous towards him. One day I anointed her and said a blessing prayer. A week later she died. A week later I buried her. And a week after that, he walks into Homeboy Industries for the very first time. And I watch him work side by side with guys I know he used to shoot at. And I watched him inhabit the truth of who he was. And I watched him, as we say at Homeboy, laugh from the stomach. One day he comes into my office and he begins very dramatically. He says, "What happened to me yesterday has never happened to me in my whole life." And he tells me after work at 5, he goes across the street to the Red Line to take it east to go home. And he says the train was packed, but he managed to get a seat. And standing right in front of him, holding onto a pole, he said was a medio pedo guy, a guy who was a little bit drunk. Older vato, had tattoos on his hand. He didn't know who he was. And Danny's wearing a sweatshirt that says Homeboy Industries, jobs not jails. And the little bit drunk guy sees the sweatshirt and he goes, "Hey, you work there?" And Danny nods. "Is it any good?" And Danny shrugs and he says, "Well, it helped me. In fact, I don't think I'm ever going to go back to prison because of this place." And then Danny stands and he fishes out a piece of paper from his pocket and he has a pen and he carefully writes the address of Homeboy Industries on the piece of paper. And as he's telling me the story, he says, "I couldn't believe I knew the address by heart." And he hands it to the guy and he sees him and he says, "You come see us. We'll help you." And the guy receives the piece of paper and he sees Danny. And he says, "Thank you." And the train stops and the guy gets off and Danny sits down. Now he returns to that earlier refrain. What happened to me next has never happened to me in my life. Everyone on the train was staring at me. Everyone on the train was nodding at me. Everyone on the train was smiling at me. And now he can barely speak. And for the first time in my life, I felt admired. And we looked at each other and we wept, because I don't know what we're supposed to do. Everyone who walks into our office at Homeboy comes barricaded behind a wall of shame and disgrace, and the only thing that can scale that wall is tenderness. We go from this place eventually knowing that tenderness is the highest form of spiritual maturity. We go from this place and we know that only the soul that ventilates the world with tenderness has any chance of changing the world. We go from this place knowing that if it is true that the traumatized are likely to cause trauma, then it has to be equally true that a cherished person will be able to find their way to the joy there is in cherishing themselves and others. Because systems change when people change, and people change when they are cherished. So for 40 years, I say all these masses in all these detention facilities, and then I raced back to Dolores Mission, where I was pastor for a time and where our Jesuit community is located. And so I'll say 2 masses in detention facilities, and I race back. My Saturdays always look the same, you know, a 1 o'clock baptism, 2 o'clock quinceañera, where a girl turns 15, 3 o'clock wedding, 4 o'clock exorcism. Just checking to see if you're still listening. I've actually never done one of those, but so I raced back, and it was like 25 minutes to 1 in my baptism, and I figured, well, I have time to race to my office. And so I go there, and I'm going through the mail, and a woman walks in. Her name is Lisa. I find out she's like 36 years old. She's a gang member, a felon, heavily tattooed, heroin addict, very much engaged in human trafficking. And this is the first time she's ever stepped foot in my office. And now it's 20 minutes to my 1 o'clock baptism. And the homies call her La Gritona because she's always screaming. And she's screaming at the guy at the bar next door who tosses her out to the street daily. She screams into a payphone, "Just let me stay tonight." And this is the first time she's ever stepped foot in our office. And she comes into my inner sanctum, and she looks at the photographs on the wall, and she sits down, and she launches right in. "I need help." Woo, I've been to like 50 rehabs. I'm known all over, nationwide. And then she takes this detour. "I went to Catholic schools all my life. I even graduated from Sacred Heart High School in Lincoln Heights." And then she gets still. In fact, the first time I started to use heroin was right after I graduated. And I've been trying to stop since the moment I began. And I watched as her head leaned against the wall behind her, and her eyes became like 2 ponds, water rising to meet its edges and spilling over. And she cried, and I let her cry until finally she leveled her gaze at me, and she said with great deliberation, "I am a disgrace." And suddenly her shame met mine, because when I had seen her step into my office that afternoon, I had mistaken her for an interruption. And we resist by knowing that loving is our true self. And we resist by knowing that loving is our home. And we resist what we need to resist by knowing that we will never be homesick because we know who we are. And it will enable us to step away from our own self-absorption so we can take seriously what Jesus took seriously. Now could be the moment when we fall apart or we become whole. At Homeboy, we're allergic to holding the bar up and asking homies to measure up, mainly because our exhausted God never does this with us. Instead, we hold the mirror up and we tell people the truth, that you are exactly what God had in mind when God made you, and then you watch folks at the margins inhabit that truth. They become that truth, and no bullet can pierce it. No 4 prison walls can keep it out, and death can't touch it because it's huge. But you have to reach in and you have to dismantle these messages of shame and disgrace. In the Acts of the Apostles, it has this one odd line, and it says, "And awe came upon everyone." And it suggests that the measure of health in any community at all, including this one, may well reside in our ability to stand in awe at what the poor have to carry, rather than stand in judgment at how they carry it. So many years ago, I was invited to speak to 600 social workers in Richmond, Virginia, and it was what we called in those days a gang in-service. And 600 social workers commandeer a hotel ballroom, and they sign in and they get credits, and from 9 to 5 they have keynotes and breakout sessions and workshops. And they learn that, no hopeful kid has ever joined a gang in the history of the world. And they learn that no kid is seeking anything when he joins one. He's always fleeing something. And so we talk about how do we infuse hope to kids for whom hope is foreign? How do we help heal the traumatized? How do we deliver mental health services in a timely and culturally appropriate way? Things like that. I had done a lot of them during the decade of death, 88 to 98. So I agreed, figured I'd do a keynote. I bought my plane ticket. And a week before I was to fly, I pull out the letter originally inviting me, and to my horror, I discover that I am to be the only speaker from 9 to 5 all damn day. And I said to myself what the homies often say, "Oh, hell no, I'm not going to be the only speaker." So I call in 2 trainees, like these 2 guys who are in our 18-month training program, Andre, an African-American gang member, and Jose, and they'd been 9 months into our training program. They were from enemy gangs. I sat them down, I said, "Look, at the end of the week, you're flying with me to Richmond, Virginia. I'd like you to get up in front of 600 social workers and tell your stories. Take your time, because we got a long-ass day to fill." Well, I had never heard their stories, and Jose gets up first, and he was like 25 years old at the time. Gang member, shot caller, been to prison, felon, tattooed. At that juncture, we have 14 social enterprises at Homeboy, but we're a lot of departments, tattoo removal and legal and wellness. And he kind of glommed onto our substance use disorder team. He became a very valued member there. He was a man solid in his own recovery. Now he's helping younger homies and homegirls with their addiction issues. So not only shot caller, gang member, prisoner, he also had a long stretch as a homeless man, even longer stretch as a heroin addict. So he gets up in front of 600 social workers. I guess you could say my mom and me, we didn't get along so good. I think I was 6 when she looked at me and she said, "Why don't you just kill yourself? You're such a burden to me." Well, 600 social workers audibly gasped. And then he says, "It sounds way worser in Spanish." and they did what you just did. And then he continued, I think I was 9 when my mom drove me down to the deepest part of Baja California, and she walks up to an orphanage and she knocks on the door, and the guy comes to the door and she says, I found this kid. And she left me there for 90 days until my grandmother could get out of her where she had dumped me, and my grandmother came and rescued me. My mom beat me every single day of my elementary school years with things you could imagine and a lot of things you couldn't. Every day, my back was bloodied and scarred. In fact, I had to wear 3 t-shirts to school each day, because the first t-shirt, the blood would seep through. The second t-shirt, you could still see it. Finally, the third t-shirt, you couldn't see any blood. Kids at school, they'd make fun of me. Hey, fool, it's 100 degrees. Why are you wearing 3 t-shirts? Then he stopped speaking, so overwhelmed with emotion, and he seemed to be staring at a piece of his story that only he could see. And when he could regain his speech, he said through his tears, I wore 3 t-shirts well into my adult years because I was ashamed of my wounds. I didn't want anybody to see them. But now I welcome my wounds. I run my fingers over my scars. My wounds are my friends. After all, how can I help heal the wounded if I don't welcome my own wounds? And awe came upon everyone. As you go from here, the measure of your compassion lies not in your service of those on the margins, but only in your willingness to see yourselves in kinship with them. For the truth of the matter is this: if we don't welcome our own wounds, we may well be tempted to despise the wounded. And Jose finished telling his story, and every single person in that ballroom stood and gave him a standing ovation. And I think that's the only praise our exhausted God has any interest in. Kinship and connection, community of cherished belonging. Now is the moment when we could fall apart, or we could become whole. Eventually, you will go from this gathering and stand at the margins in confidence that they'll only get erased if you go out to them. And you will imagine a circle of compassion, and then you will imagine nobody standing outside that circle. And you will go from here determined to resist by being loving, because you know that is the only thing that can dismantle the barriers that exclude. And you will go from here and you will take seriously what Jesus took seriously: inclusion, nonviolence, unconditional loving kindness, and compassionate acceptance. And here's the truth of everybody in this room: you gave up a long time ago caring if anybody accuses you of wasting your time at the margins. For in this place of which you say it is a waste, there will be heard again the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voices of those who sing Thank you.
Oh, hey, oh, ooh, ooh. Hello. Let's make like the waterfall. Ready? Shh. Yeah. Let's take this time now to let the floor carry us. Let the chair carry you. Let's take a deep breath together. Let's enjoy some stillness. We've heard a lot of wonderful story, words, feelings. In the stillness, let that which has touched you most float up. I'm just going to do a little music for that.
Thank you so much, Father Boyle. Before we break, a few announcements. Once again, we want to reiterate that it is mandatory to wear your name tag throughout the weekend. Please help us keep each other safe and holding your peers accountable.
Outside the ballroom, we have over 70 organizations exhibiting. Every time you talk to an exhibitor, they can provide a raffle ticket for you to be entered into the Social Justice Expo raffle for some awesome social justice prizes. We'll draw names for that throughout the weekend.
If you would like to serve as a Eucharistic minister or as part of the choir during Sunday's liturgy, please sign up at the front of the stage directly following these announcements. Musicians to the piano, ministers on the other side of the stage.
All Jesuits, vowed religious, and anyone who would like to be a reader in tonight's prayer service for the Jesuit martyrs, please meet at the back of the ballroom directly after these announcements.
And lastly, please bring your t-shirts for swapping to tonight's prayer for the Jesuit martyrs. The swap will take place immediately after prayer. We will see you at your breakout sessions at 8 p.m., which is about 20 minutes from now. One more announcement here.
Just make sure that you please clear the aisles and head out of the space. Thank you.
Tantas luchas, tantos senderos, cada ser un cosmo entero.